Your Excellencies, dear delegates, may I invite you to take your seats so that we can continue at pace with the concluding plenary session of the 21st IISS Manama Dialogue. This session is entitled Another Nuclear Age, Strategic Risk and Opportunity. We have all noticed, and in fact it has been discussed on the margins of our debate on energy already during the Manama Dialogue, that there is growing interest in nuclear energy worldwide, given rising demands, notably to power technological and industrial projects. Many governments are embarking on new civilian energy programs and are considering the deployment of new designs for smaller nuclear reactors. In parallel, fraying global security and questions about the relevance of global non-proliferation rules, are prompting new thinking about nuclear deterrence and the merits of military nuclear programs. And I would add that recent conflict and war, in fact, certainly in the case of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but also Israel and Iran, has probably, if anything, underlined the importance of nuclear weapons and the nuclear component of deterrence. So in this session, we will discuss the merits, trade-offs, and risks inherent to emerging nuclear ambitions, civilian and military. And I have two outstanding speakers here with me to help us do that. Admiral Giuseppe Dragone, the chair of the Military Committee of NATO. In this role, he is the principal military advisor to the Secretary General of NATO and NATO's most senior military officer. As you will know, he was Italy's Chief of Defense Staff from 2021 to 2024, and he was Chief of the Italian Navy from 2019 to 2021. And we have, to my left, Anna Birchall, the former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice of Romania, who currently serves as a presidential advisor to the government of Romania, and also, I believe, to Romania's nuclear energy companies, who are part state-owned, if I'm informed correctly. So we'll have a fantastic blend of experience. Admiral, may I invite you to take the podium and deliver your remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, really honored to address here in Manama, a place that reminds us that dialogue and security are inseparable, and that peace is not built on hope alone, but on understanding and responsibility. Let me start with a question. If a month ago I would have mentioned words like Poseidon, Burevestnik, steadfast noon, how many of us would have associated them with the topic of this panel? I doubt many. And yet, they were among the most goggled words in the last 3 weeks. A sign that today's discussion comes really timely, in my view. When I began my career as a naval aviator almost 5 decades ago, deterrence was an equation of two powers, two doctrines, and two arsenals. The logic was severe, but in a way, more predictable. Fast forward to today, we notice that we are in a much more complex, dynamic, and potentially more unstable age. An age shaped by emerging and competing threats that, by extension, if not handled carefully, could endanger us all. As I said, the Cold War's nuclear order was binary and therefore, in a paradoxical way, stable. Since the end of the Cold War, allied nuclear powers have reduced the number of their nuclear warheads in Europe by over 90%. This is because NATO allies support the ultimate goal of a world without nuclear weapons. But allies have also been clear. As long as there is a nuclear weapon in the world, NATO will remain a nuclear alliance. In today's world, deterrence has become a mosaic of actors, technologies, and perceptions. Russia uses nuclear rhetoric as a tool of coercion. China expands its arsenal under veil of secrecy. North Korea continues to defiantly test its nascent nuclear capabilities. And it has teamed up with Moscow and others who are determined to uproot the rule-based international order that has shaped the world we have flourished in. And let's not forget Iran, who continues to provide support to Russia in its war of aggression against Ukraine, to defy various UN Security Council resolutions on non-proliferation, and not to fulfill its legal obligation under its non-proliferation treaty. This is why the NATO alliance remains committed to ensuring greater integration and coherence of capabilities and activities across all domains, while reaffirming the unique and distinct role of nuclear deterrence. So we are not revisiting the past. We are navigating an entirely new strategic environment, one that multiplies risk through uncertainties. And in the business of defense and strategic deterrence, uncertainty is what keeps us all up at night. Let's then face it. The danger today does not lie primarily in the size of arsenals, but in the erosion of understanding and surety. When communication channels close, stated doctrines are undermined by action to the contrary, and divisive rhetoric replaces restraint and conciliatory language, the potential of miscalculations increases exponentially. A cyber intrusion may be misinterpreted as a blatant attack. An autonomous system could react faster than human judgment. A regional incident might spiral into a global crisis. This is not science fiction. This is a reality that demands for strategic stability to continue to rely on clarity, predictability, and dialogue, even among adversaries. Let me remind you, the fundamental purpose of NATO's nuclear deterrent is to preserve peace, prevent coercion, and deter aggression. As I said, as long as nuclear weapons exist, NATO will remain a nuclear alliance whose approach is underpinned by the principle of safety, security, effectiveness, and credibility. Our deterrence and defense posture combines an appropriate mix of conventional, nuclear, cyber, and space capabilities integrated into a coherent whole. And since operational readiness is essential to maintain such an approach, Allied armed forces regularly exercise this capability, transparently, predictably, and collectively. Our exercises are not about provocation. They are about interoperable effectiveness and transparent communication of our capabilities, upholding our credibility and resolve to defend our alliance. Regular training ensure procedures are sound, communication are clear, and our people, from the highest commander to the youngest technician, fully prepared to act with professionalism and resilience. Strategic deterrence, after all, only works if it is capable, credible, and communicated. A predictable example is NATO's nuclear deterrence exercise Steadfast Noon, held every year in the autumn in the north or south of the alliance. Steadfast Noon does not feature the use of live nuclear weapons. This year involved roughly 2,000 personnel and around 70 aircraft from 14 allied nations, including a mix of conventional and dual-capable aircraft. Supporting assets included surveillance, air-to-air refueling, and command and control aircraft. The 2025 edition just ended. successfully and transparently, sending a clear message to any adversary. NATO can and will protect and defend all allies against all threats. And then the human factor. I'm sure many of you watch Netflix House of Dynamite. In times where technology accelerates, compressing time may blur threshold. And this reminds us that deterrence still depends above all on human interpretation and judgment. Machines may calculate probabilities, but they do not bear the moral weight of consequences. They cannot pause, reflect, or choose restraint. That responsibility remains and must always remain within people. As military leaders, our duty is to provide unfettered, honest, and experienced advice to political authorities who will ultimately make the decision. To say not what it is convenient, but what it is true. And we must remember, nuclear deterrence is not simply the Western concern. It is a global responsibility. The Middle East, Europe, and the Indo-Pacific are connected strategic ecosystems. Instability in one reverberates in all. That is why NATO has developed tailored partnership with the regional actors, with international organizations, and with all those sharing our interest in preventing escalation and ensuring global stability. Together, we must cultivate global culture of transparency, risk reduction, and responsible behavior to make the nuclear deterrent a tool to constructive dialogue and confidence building, with the ultimate goal of preserving peace and prosperity for our future generations. It is through this approach that we can also fully align with our determination to support arms control, disarmament, and non-proliferation. We are strongly supportive of the non-proliferation treaty as the only credible path to nuclear disarmament. We are constantly working to improve our collective security through tangible and verifiable measures that can reduce strategic risks and enable real progress in this matter. But again, a world in which Russia, China, North Korea, and others have nuclear weapons, while NATO does not, is not a safer world. And I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the first nuclear age taught us restraint. Today's congested security landscape is already testing us. If we respond with discipline, unity, and clarity, this new age needs not to inherit the danger of the last. It can grow more stable and more predictable. The French philosopher Paul Valéry once wrote, "The future is not what it used to be. Indeed, it is not, and perhaps it will never be again. But if we remain united, vigilant, and guided by responsibility, we can ensure that even in this new era, we will continue to serve peace and not cause unnecessary danger." Thank you.
Admiral, thank you very much for those remarks. When you started with Poseidon and Burevestnik, I thought I personally know 40 people who have, since 2018, since these systems were first unveiled, spent a lot of time thinking about them, and they are the members of the IISS Defensive Military Analysis Program, where we do pay a lot of attention to these developments. So we might want to talk about capability later on, but also I think that point about NATO's thinking about escalation as we move from, through these situations of uncertainty in a nuclear context. I think that's a very important point as well. Anna, may I invite you to take the podium, please? Anna Birchall.
Thank you very much, Bastian. Let me begin by thanking IISS and the Kingdom of Bahrain for inviting me here again. It is a true honor and pleasure to be here, and I congratulate IISS, Sir John Chipman, for putting this topic as so relevant today into our agenda. We are indeed entering another nuclear age, but this time it must not be defined by fear or competition, but by responsibility, vision, and courage. Nuclear energy today represents far more than electricity. It stands at the intersection of security, sustainability, and strategic autonomy. It guarantees long-term energy independence, supports decarbonization, and strengthens national resilience in a world increasingly marked by uncertainty. If you had told me even a decade ago that nuclear would become fashionable again, I might have smiled politely, even though as a lawyer I would argue, with great success I might say, that you are wrong, because nuclear energy is among the cleanest sources of energy, and this is science, not politics. And yet, here we are in 2025, with presidents, ministers, and CEOs all suddenly speaking fluent fission and fusion. And this is a very good thing, because nuclear energy, long undervalued, has re-emerged as a strategic resource, a guarantor of energy sovereignty, a prerequisite for industrial competitiveness, and a decisive contributor to national security. However, this new nuclear age comes with significant strategic risks that you, Admiral, mentioned, and if you allow me, I will complement with a few others. The global nuclear fuel cycle, from uranium to enrichment and fabrication, is increasingly a field of geopolitical contest. Supply chains are tightening. Critical infrastructures has become a concern in conflict zones, and adversarial actors are attempting to leverage energy dependence as a tool of coercion. We also face a generational challenge. The world needs more reactors than we have skilled workers, manufacturing capability and capacity, or regulatory bandwidth ready to deliver. If we allow these vulnerabilities to define the future, then nuclear progress could become a new source of instability rather than resilience and progress. Yet, the true promise of nuclear technology lies beyond power generation. For 70 years, the world nuclear has carried two faces, one bright, one dark. It can light cities or destroy them. It heals through nuclear medicine, diagnostics, and cancer treatment, or it can create a catastrophe. It feeds through advances in agriculture, soil management, and food security. It protects by monitoring our oceans, atmosphere, and groundwater, helping us fight climate change. It innovates, opening new frontiers in clean hydrogen, advanced material, artificial intelligence, and even space exploration. The same technologies that power our industries can, if misused, undermine our security. The same uranium that fuels hospitals can, if in the wrong hands, fuel weapons. We are witnessing not just a technological revival, but a civilization test. Can humanity finally use its most powerful invention not as a weapon of fear, but as an instrument of progress? Yes, we build reactors for energy, but we must also rebuild the framework of peace. Used wisely and ethically, nuclear energy is not a weapon of the past, but a foundation for the future, a tool for peace, prosperity, and progress. It can bring nations together throughout cooperation, transparency, and shared standards, transforming what was once a symbol of fear into a symbol of trust. Let me share with you in a few words, and maybe during the questions, a little bit more about Romanian lessons, because it's a responsibility. We saw responsibility as being a power. Romanian experience, my country, tells a story worth hearing. Decades ago, in the 1970s, we made a choice to use North American technology, the CANDU technology, not the Russian one, and Romania was among the very few countries, if not the only country in Central Eastern Europe, to reject Russian technology from the very beginning. And it was a very smart move, right? We are one of the few EU member states that have maintained and expanded our civilian nuclear program in full compliance with the highest international safety and non-proliferation standards. We have 4 power plants, we have 2 in use and 2 to build, and as I will mention later, we sign up with the American SMR technology. Again, we were among the very first and we were very smart to do so. For us, from the very beginning, energy security was and continues to be a matter of national security. And both depend on trust, professionalism, and respecting the highest international standards of safety and integrity. That is perhaps the most underrated truth of this nuclear age. Technology means nothing without integrity. The real challenge of this new nuclear age is not just about only technological, but moral issue as well. It is a test of character, whether we have the leadership and wisdom to use this immense power in the service of humanity, not against it. Because in the end, the way we choose to shape the nuclear age will reveal not just our scientific capability, but the true measures of our global responsibility. Civilian nuclear power is no longer a marginal option. It has become a rational necessity. In such an advanced technological era, we cannot avoid the civilian use of nuclear energy. This is precisely why responsibility is not a choice, but a condition for survival. I was mentioning earlier about the SMRs from US, for example. They are not just an engineering trend, they are a moral opportunity. The bright that brings reliable, affordable, and clean energy to places long left in the dark, to turn former coal sites into symbols of rebirth, to make the energy transformation not a burden, but a bridge. And yes, Romania is among the first countries to go with the US SMR's technology, another smart move on our side. Because nuclear power is evolving from a single-purpose asset into a genuine engine of economic transformation and climate leadership. This transformation momentum is particularly relevant in the Middle East, and maybe we can elaborate a little bit later, because I don't want Bastian to say that I am overstepping my time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest. The phrase "another nuclear age" might sound frightening, but it doesn't have to be, because this time we know what's at stake. We know that proliferation destroys, but cooperation builds. We know that transparency is the real deterrent. The future will not belong to those who should shout the loudest, but to those that think the longest. That means investing not only in reactors, but in regulations, in financing, not only in fuel, but in education, not only in power plants, but in public trust. Without those, megawatts means very little. The question before us is clear. Will this new nuclear age reinforce division and insecurity, or it will create a foundation for a more resilient and cooperative world? Let's remember, nuclear power at its core is not about atoms, it's about people, about the scientists who believe knowledge can save lives, the engineers who turn equalization and equations into light, and the citizens that trust and put their trust into their leaders to act with wisdom and courage, not with populism. Let this new nuclear age be defined not by confrontation, but by cooperation, not by race for dominance, but by race for wisdom. We hold in our hands a force powerful enough to destroy or to sustain the future of humanity. What we choose to do will define who we are. We have the knowledge, we have the technology, we now must have to prove that we also have the conscience, because the nuclear age ahead of us will not be written by those with fear its power, but by those who chooses to use the power with purpose. The true power of the nuclear new age doesn't lie in the atom itself, but in our humanity, in our choice to make this power save lives, not threaten them. Let nuclear power no longer be a whisper of destruction, but a declaration of human responsibility. And if we succeed, perhaps one day our children will look back at this moment and say, they were the generation who turned the atom from a weapon into a promise of shared security and prosperity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anna Birchall, thank you so much for these remarks, and thank you in particular for extending our conversation into the themes that have actually been quite prominent here at the Manama Dialogue: energy, prosperity, and that intersection with international security. I think we have the perfect blend here on stage: civilian and military expertise, military and political expertise. So we're ready to take your questions, and we have about half an hour for debate. So I'll take a whole set. It's already a good list. So if you want to ask a question, you should get in the queue now, because it is growing to a considerable length. And we'll start with Sarah Tamim from Bahrain and the Young Leaders Group. Sarah.
Thank you, Excellencies, for this insightful session. My question is, with the new emerging technologies such as AI, cyber operations, and hypersonic systems now intersecting with the nuclear strategies, do you believe we're entering an era where technology increases instability, or could innovation actually create new tools for risk reduction and verification? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the UK, James Hackett.
Thanks, Bastian. I've got a long list, but I'll just stick to a couple. Earlier this year, the UK rejoined NATO's DCA capability, or stated an intention to do that with announced planned purchases of F-35As. In light of the capabilities you're talking about that Russia at least has announced the testing of, what should be next for NATO's European members in terms of nuclear capability development? And if I can, another quick one. I noted your discussion about steadfast noon, and I noted earlier the messaging around that, which was a significant change. Looking more broadly at how NATO demonstrates its military capability and its resolve, will we see greater assertiveness from the alliance in terms of messaging in the scale, purpose, and function of its broader military exercise regime? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Germany, Alex Bolfras.
Thank you, Bastian. I have two questions for the Admiral. We, of course, know that the New START treaty, whatever's left of it, is expiring in February. So first, I wonder whether we should anticipate any material changes to the Russian nuclear arsenal after that event. And second, you talked about risk reduction measures, and I wonder if you had some ideas on what could be pursued between Russia and NATO if a follow-on treaty to New START is not possible. And if you'll just permit me a brief addendum to James's question, I wonder if you might have some views on whether it would make sense to add more DCA hosts among NATO countries, especially with the large gap among tactical nuclear weapons between Russia and NATO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, from Pakistan, Atiya Ali Kazmi.
Thank you, Dr. Bastian. Excellent presentations. My question for respected Admiral is that the Indian Ocean security is increasingly shaped by the intersection of regional conflicts and extra-regional deployments. So after the May 2025 conflict with Pakistan, New Delhi signaled that any future aggression would be taken to the maritime domain. And we know that in the Arabian Sea, NATO's naval assets also operate. So how does the NATO factor in its threat calculus the risk of inadvertent or accidental entanglement for a potential India-Pakistan confrontation at sea? And my question for Madam Minister is, who aptly highlighted that new nuclear technologies are reshaping the landscape of peaceful cooperation, but they also blur the lines between civil and strategic use. So as the SMRs and other advanced systems spread beyond traditional frameworks, what mechanisms can ensure transparency, safeguards, and trust in such cooperation outside the NPT's conventional arrangements? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the UK, Tom Beckett.
Thank you, Bastian. It might appear that this is more for you, Admiral, but Anna, based on your last piece about turning nuclear into something for peace and not for war, I'd really appreciate your view as well. I mean, I think nuclear capability, it seems to me, is a system of systems, and you mentioned one of those, Admiral, which was strategic messaging. The other important ones are targeting, delivery, and survival. And that is having the civil-military capacity to survive an exchange as a nation. In this part of the world, Prince Mohammed bin Salman said that if Iran got a bomb, then Saudi would too. In your assessment, how many potentially aspiring nuclear states would have the capability to build the system, and what measures should be considered over and above what we already do to enforce the NPT?
Thank you very much. From Bahrain and the Young Leaders Group, Nauf Al-Awadi.
Thank you, Bastian. When it comes to nuclear energy, as mentioned by the panel, there's the pros and cons. However, unpredictable state actors have used it as a political tool, and which has somewhat brought us back to the days of the Cold War. Therefore, could nuclear energy become a tool of political leverage or coercion between nations, especially with unpredictable states developing their nuclear capabilities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the United States, Jacob Olidor.
Thank you very much. I'm with the America First Policy Institute. The 12-day war and Operation Midnight Hammer could be seen as an inflection point, changing from deterrence to prevention of strategic risk. I wonder if the panelists could describe what this moment represents and whether it opens up new opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From Jordan and from the Young Leaders Group, Mohammed Hawash.
Thank you. So looking at current projections for the Gulf region, by around 2040, there will be 30 nuclear reactors just on the Gulf Rim, 16 in Saudi, 4 in the UAE, 8 in Iran, a few others. This is not including SMRs. So how do you think this will affect NATO's posture towards the region, and what are the consequences of this for the world as a whole?
Thank you very much. Ben Schreier from Germany.
Thank you, Bastian. My question also is for Admiral Dragone. Recently, former NATO Secretary General Lord Robertson called for UK-German nuclear sharing and a more Europeanized approach to NATO's nuclear deterrence in general. Could I please get your views on how realistic that is? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll take two more. From the UK, Fenella McGurty.
Thank you, Bastian. My question is for Admiral Dragone. I think in light of what needs to be done and the fiscal pressure countries are under, do you find that they are prioritizing investment accordingly, not just in terms of their defense budget, but also in terms of civil security and energy security, not just in these capabilities and the supporting infrastructure, but also personnel? Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Simon Mayle.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bastian. I'm always interested when we use the thing, another nuclear age. Half the people listening instantly go over to the defensive use or nuclear weapons, and the other half, to an extent, look on the opportunities. And I always worry that the language in this arena is really difficult, because it's quite clear, talking to people like Mr. Darnley the other day, that we're looking for an era of energy abundance. in which nuclear will play an increasing part. It must do. We're building data centers alongside small nuclear reactors. And somewhere we need some new vocabulary and new language that breaks out the weaponization of nuclear power and, of course, the huge potential that nuclear power offers with an increasing global population. Because as soon as you say nuclear, instantly people drive down this dichotomy of which bits we're referring to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's a lot on the table, and I'll give both speakers several minutes to respond to these questions. And I might ask you to start this round of responses. There were several questions about nuclear technology like SMRs and others, the transparency and trust around those, nuclear energy as a tool for political coercion and leverage, given the range of countries that are developing these capabilities. And I think there's a general question around increasing instability or whether we can counter that with new tools for risk reduction, verification, and then there were a few other things that you might want to pick up on. Yes. So why don't I ask you to start this round?
Thank you so much, Bastian. Thank you for the questions. It's not just nuclear as being weaponized. I can share with you since my own experience in 2018, 2019. I was Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Justice in Romania, and we were arguing, me and the Prime Minister of Poland at that time, to take away the energy from Putin's hands because he's going to use it as a weapon. So, yes, a friend from UK mentioned when we say nuclear, it's like a bow in the room, and that's why I was so grateful and pleased that you put today on this great platform the nuclear energy, because we need to not just build the trust, as I was trying to say in my introductory remarks, but likewise to have the framework where the responsibility is the new power, because we need to have that collective responsibility, but likewise the share of the tools, because yes, you can always abuse being, the energy. Look at the Black Sea region, my part of the world region, in my part of the world, one power, a nuclear power, is using its power to strengthen our region, and we are fighting very hard, and we are grateful for your help as well, to not allow that region to become a theater of conflicts. And that's why the energy, if we look, it's science. I'm not a technical person, but through the years I've been educating myself about the benefits of the nuclear, because in 2018-19 I was involved in unblocking, along with other great people from Romania, unblocking our potential in our nuclear power plants. And if you need any expertise or any knowledge, we will be very happy to share with you, because you mentioned here, a friend from the audience mentioned that we will be having so many capacities of reactors building, and yet let's not forget to invest in the education, to invest in the skills. Romania is very proud to have this knowledge, and we are very happy to share it. Like, for example, one power plant, the Baraka plant, has been built with a lot of experts from Romania. We are with the SMRs. Yes, the SMRs might be frightened, and maybe the military colleagues here in the room might pick up on this as well. The SMR technology is not a new technology. It's the same technology that is being used on the nuclear submarines, on the submarines. So it's just a more affordable tool of providing the energy, because in my opinion and in our opinion, the energy, it's a matter of civilization, and it's a matter of fundamental rights. That's why we need to use the energy not as a weapon, being any type of energy, but likewise the nuclear energy as well, where it could be a game changer as well. So when it comes to unpredictability, yeah, anything can be, not predictable and have risks. But I think if we are, that's why I mentioned and I stress several times, this is a time of a game changer, but it's a time of our true values and character. Do we have the character and the courage, and do we have the leaders that will be pursued with courage to turn this great science, okay, the atom that the scientists came and gave it to us, to turn it into a tool for peace and for shared security and prosperity. And it's up to us. And the ones that are not going to abide with this, yes, you should have very strong sanctions. Because, you know, as in law, you have obligations, you have rights and obligations. So it's about, you know, the shared responsibility that will drive the new era into a shared prosperity.
Anna, thank you for that. Can I ask you to say a few more words on, there was a question on, and as a representative of a European NATO member state, do you think the alliance should be more assertive in its messaging and exercises perhaps around this question of its nuclear capability? That's one point that I wanted to see whether you had thoughts on. And then Jacob's question on whether it looks to you, looking at the 12-day war here in the region, Operation Midnight Hammer, are we moving, does it feel to you that we're moving from deterrence to prevention? And if so, what does that mean? Is it an opportunity or is it a risk? How do you look at those two
To start with the last one, I think, yes, it is, we are moving towards deterrence, towards the peace, and it's up to us, again, to go along, and it's a huge opportunity. You know, things can turn from, you know, from one day to another, but I hope that we will stay on the course of the peace, because that's most important. And again, yes, nuclear could be very scary, but if we are building that trust, you know, the reason why Romania, you know how much trust is among the Romanian population for the nuclear, and on a consistent basis, 70, 80%. You know why is that? Firstly, because we operate the power plants in Cernavodă at the highest level of security, okay, and responsibility. But likewise, and those are the criteria, international criteria, that we are very proud that we are right on top there. But likewise, we are not complacent. We are educating our citizens every single day. Yes, we are living in a world of manipulation. Yes, we are facing all the tools that are being provided in the region to try to undermine the trust of a new tool of energy that will be abundant, as our friend from US was saying yesterday. But likewise, if you are not complacent, if you are investing, including in the education, and rebuild that, why did I say rebuild the frame of peace and trust? Because we need to rebuild the frame of trust among ourselves and among what the nuclear energy is meaning and what are the true benefits, because everybody is looking at the nuclear just as an energy. But how many people do know that, you know, you can actually see how old is the water? And that it's a strong tool to really plan in advance, where you could actually help regions, including for food. And then, you know, if we go into more details, you could see that you can even create crops, not artificial ones, you know, but actually real crops with the same properties, but according to the conditions that are, and this might be very important for this area. With the SMRs, as I mentioned, we were very courageous. Yes, there's been a lot of manipulation in our region as well, but the SMRs are providing, they are very easy to install, they are providing this huge opportunity of a new era of energy, where the energy is not going to be just a luxurious or a very expensive you know, tool, but actually a very affordable and reliable one. And at the EU, because we need to learn our lessons at the EU level, okay? I was not talking about the EU per se. I am a very pro-European person. I was on the team to go Romania into NATO and the EU. But we need to be realistic and learn the lessons at the EU level as well, because I was in the battle with the taxonomy. Because one challenge for the nuclear projects are the financing, okay? Finding the tools for the financing, because at the beginning they are quite expensive. But when you look at the long term, when you do the math, and the math is so simple, you will see that actually is the cheapest or among the cheapest sources of energy. So we need to find, one challenge is to find the tools of providing the financing, and here the international financial institutions should actually start now looking more carefully of what does it mean to invest in the nuclear energy as well. And at the EU level, we managed to put the nuclear alongside with the gas into so-called taxonomy. That is giving a very good, powerful tool for the financing.
Anna, thank you so much. Admiral, there were, if I counted correctly, 6 questions directed at you, a lot to do with NATO's view of nuclear capability. Post-New START, how do you see Russia's capability evolving? Should NATO have more DCA, dual-capable hosts? There was the UK-Germany question, and also how NATO might look at its own threat calculus and how it might integrate thinking of a potential conflict India-Pakistan, and also spreading of nuclear civilian capability across other regions. So I'll invite you to take a few minutes to answer those and tap into any others that you might want to pick up from the general set of questions. Admiral.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I need to admit that I grabbed the microphone a little bit late, so if I'm missing something, you're going to help me out.
I will help you out, yes.
Give me answer. Thank you very much. I mean, pretty different question. Let me go through what I got on my notes. The nuclear has a coercion for states. I mean, that's the reason why we are the alliance. And probably the coercion would work towards single state, maybe the smaller one or the one not with the new capability. But again, this is the meaning of being the alliance. That's the insurance that every single state signed to get the protection from the whole community. And you know better than I that for 76 years, I mean, the United States, UK, and France, with their capability, have been providing us good level deterrence, because here we are, and nothing happened from then on. So I would say that coercion is around the corner, but I think that the alliance has the tool and the capability to transmit the message that no one of us could be threatened by any potential adversary, because they will lose more than what they will gain. That's basically one thing, one of the question. The 12 days war. That was, let's say again, a last step of deterrence. It was something probably shocking, but that came after a long story of misleading behavior from Iran. So something should be done, and just to convince them that couldn't get along with that kind of behavior. And that has been done, and I think, honestly, it worked. It has been done in a hard way. I think that from the overall view, the loss of life have been reduced at the minimum, just to achieve a strategic result with the minimum loss. But again, that's something that probably should have been done, because I mean that the path that Iran took and was following was not anymore acceptable. So as far as I can define that, that's a pretty strong way to deter, and I think they did, and I think it was successful. On 2040, we'll have 20 reactors in the area. Well, that's the reason why we are a partner. We are, of course, and the reason why we are here, I'm here, is that because partnership, as I said, is equal as the alliance. I mean that a partner has, for us, the same value, the same importance as an alliance, and that's why we are here in this area. And whatever it will happen, and whatever will be the decision that every single state will take in the future, I mean, we will be more than glad to be, part of it, to be involved, and to keep and to deepen our relationship and our connection with the area. So we are not afraid about the 20 reactors, because we are positive that they will be used in a proper way, and it will be beneficial for the area and also for the NATO itself, having configuration on this part of the world which is stable, which is healthy, which is wealthy, and that's basically it. So nothing wrong with this. UK and German nuclear dialogues. Well, there are two countries from the alliance, so again, anything, they're strong allied, so anything will come up from their speeches and their decision on this area will be, of course, beneficial for the whole of the alliance. So we are looking, I think all the alliance is watching what's going on, and probably being enthusiastic for the benefits we will get from this kind of enterprise.
Would you welcome more DCA nations in NATO, or do you think there needs to be more nuclear sharing in that regard?
Okay, now what we are doing, and Steadfast Noon was just the proof that we did. We had potential, nuclear potential, which is well above our adversary. There's no need of it. But we need to be flexible. We need to adapt to the threat, and so I'm expecting that. We will evolve, and we will keep on our training, we will keep on our planning, we will keep on our updating of our capability. Of course, DCA aircraft is not just, the package is not just DCA, it's a huge number of aircraft, ISR, CAP, air refueling, and on and on. It is a pretty complicated business, but I think we will evolve in that sense. I think that more nations will be available to be DCA capable. That's just redundancy, that's just resilience, so they're more than welcome, and we are working on that direction. What else? In the pack competition, of course, NATO has not been involved in directly, but of course, from the political, military not involved. From the political point of view, we have been monitoring that, and again, I think that deterrence worked at that point. I think that at a certain point, very, very maturely, probably also with the intervention of Mr. Trump, but again, the struggle, the war, let's call it, the battle ended with a small amount of casualties compared to what maybe we could expect from a kind of evolution or increase in the fighting. Probably being too strong nation in the area helped that to keep that kind of regain equilibrium and balance that we got after a couple of weeks of fighting. How to increase NPT? I don't know if I'm wrong. I think it will expire on April 26th. Is that correct? But
New start.
Yeah.
There's a
non-proliferation
treaty.
Yeah, but non-proliferation treaty. How to improve that? Just with the example from the NATO point of view. Of course, we are dependent on the sovereign decision of the three nations, but. It is an effort that we need to keep on exercising. NATO itself as an alliance is totally aligned with the non-proliferation treaty, and we will work on that direction. We, the 32, we work together on that direction, putting the most of our energy in trying to achieve results on that area.
Can I ask you to close on Russia? your predecessor as CMC, somewhat controversially at the time, at an IISS event last year, said if Russia didn't have nuclear weapons, NATO members would all be in Ukraine kicking the Russians out. I'm not going to ask you whether you agree with that statement, but I wanted to ask you whether you could say something about how important you think the nuclear dimension is in that war, and how NATO should react to it.
Well, the nuclear has been used by President Putin sometime, every now and then, recently for the Tomahawk issue. The nuclear stuff is used now as messages, as a strategic communication mainly from the Russian side. But again, we can analyze that it happens every single time they are in difficulties. That's something that probably it's the card that they put on the table whenever they feel that something could go wrong. Tomahawk is just the latest one, but if you see that it was a kind of periodical, whenever there was kind of feeling that something could be in their disadvantage. Up to now, it is just a theoretical menace, a threat that they're using. We are taking the way it is, just a threat, because I don't think we will get to that point.
Thank you very much. Admiral, thank you so much for engaging with all of those questions in a very delicate portfolio. So I'd like to draw us to a conclusion here and to a close. This concludes our concluding panel for the Manama Dialogue. But before I invite you to thank our speakers, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the host nation, the Kingdom of Bahrain, for their support and collaboration, without which an event of this scale and complexity would not be possible. We're extremely grateful to His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince for their warm welcome here in the Kingdom, and to the multiple government departments and agencies deployed to ensure that this 21st IISS Manama Dialogue was convened successfully and safely. As I said on Friday evening, the IISS agenda is simple: foster dialogue, facilitate cooperation in the service of peace, security, stability, and civilized relations among nations. And I hope that you will agree that we have made important steps in this direction over the past 2 days. As you might have noticed, over 700 delegates from 65 nations were involved here in this dialogue. 27 of them were young leaders from 9 countries who made a great effort to push forward our debate, and I'd like to thank them for it. We had some over 3,500 people batched into this event to support it in its various ways. We had 28 full ministers participate, 24 intelligence heads, 11 deputy ministers, 7 national security advisors, 9 chiefs of defense, and the list continues. The IISS itself has facilitated over 103 bilateral meetings between nations, and then, of course, on top of that 103 go all of those bilateral and minilateral meetings that nations will have organized amongst themselves. 103 is just the ones that we were involved in. As of this morning, online, the IISS Manama Dialogue has already reached more than 7 million people through our various channels, and of course, no doubt that number will have only increased throughout the morning, when we had, again, 3 really interesting discussions. And I'm also grateful for our media delegates and the press pool that is participating here to transport the messages from the IISS Manama Dialogue into the world. And we had 25% more journalists here this year than we had in 2024. So that is encouraging as well. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here and for being delegates at this dialogue and for participating so actively in this conversation. That is why we're here, and I'm glad that you're embracing that spirit and you have embraced that spirit over the last 2 days. Thank you very much. And now, before you go to lunch, I invite you to thank our two fantastic speakers. Thank you very much.